So I think it's 1:30 and we are ready. I hope everyone can hear me, or else please write a comment down in the chat, or else I'm going to assume that we're all right to proceed. First, I want to say welcome all to today's webinar on the excellence section of the Horizon Europe proposal template for research and innovation projects and innovation projects, that is the RIA and IA projects. My name is Anne Meibom, and with me today I have my colleague Stephanie Bundy Janssen. You can see her there waving. Stephanie will be looking after the chat today and also be handling the Q&As later on. Stephanie and I both work as national contact points, or NCPs, at Eurocenter at the Danish Agency for Higher Education and Science, and it's in that capacity that we've set up the webinar here today. I think I'm gonna share my screen here. Should be this one. I hope you all see it now. First, a few practical points about the webinar today. Please keep your microphones muted throughout the webinar. You are very welcome to ask questions via the chat functions. And we have two speakers today, and we'll try to pool their questions for after their individual presentations. Also, I have to mention that we are recording the webinar. So if you don't wish to have your picture on the recording, please make sure to turn off your camera as well. We'll send out a link to the recording as well as a PDF of the presentations from the webinar today. We'll do that after the webinar. Then if we take a closer look at the agenda for the webinar, we have about an hour. We'll finish at 2:30. And I'll start out with giving a little bit of information about these webinars that we are conducting about the proposal template. Then I'll talk a little bit about the NCPs here in Denmark and what our role is. Then we have invited Peter Herdwig, who is head of unit at the European Commission. And Peter, thank you very much for being here with us today. We know you're very busy at the Commission, so it's greatly appreciated. Peter will give an introduction to the excellence section of the proposal template. And following Peter, FT Alcidiadis, who's an associate professor at Copenhagen Business School, has been kindly enough to agree to come and share his approach to writing the excellence section. And to you, FT, also thank you very much for allocating time for being with us today. Then we'll finish with last questions if we have time and closing remarks. So these webinars on the proposal template, we have organized 3 webinars, one for each of the main section of the proposal template. Today we're focusing on excellence. Tomorrow my colleagues will focus on impact, and on the 27th of May other colleagues will focus on the implementation section. I am to say that it's still possible to sign up for the impact webinar taking place tomorrow. Registration closes today at 4, so still a little bit of time. And then of course, also time to sign up for the webinar on the 27th of May. Yes, and then as I mentioned, both Stephanie and I are national contact points for Horizon Europe here at Eurocenter at the Agency for Higher Education and Science. And as national contact points, we offer counseling and information about the opportunities, the requirements, as well as the rules for funding in Horizon Europe. And then we also act as program committee members, meaning that we represent Denmark in program committees and there have dialogue with the Commission and with the other member states about the structure and the content of the work programs under Horizon Europe. Just to show some of the activities that we have or conduct here at Eurocenter, then we have our large Horizon Europe website, which was recently published. Here you can find all information about the program, how to apply, and the different opportunities, topics, programs. Yes, and then we publish an online magazine, EU Inblick, and we conduct webinars, information meeting, and podcasts, and we produce handbooks and other guidelines, and these are all available free of charge for you. It's also possible to follow us on social media, on LinkedIn and on Twitter via a search for Eurocenter on both platforms. Then last, I just want to share a bit of information about 2 funding schemes that our agency has available. And first, EU Upstart offers grants to fund the activities of Danish enterprises and research institutions when writing applications for programs under Horizon Europe. There's a maximum funding of 50,000 Danish kroner if you are a partner in a collaborative project. And this can cover some of the expenses, for instance, for payroll costs or for travel expenses. Coordinators of collaborative projects can receive up to 75,000 Danish kroners. And these grants can cover up to 50% of the expenses related to writing applications for Horizon Europe. There are 3 cutoff dates here in 2021. There's the 8th of June, 24th of June, and also the 2nd of November. So definitely worth considering if you're going to be writing an application for Horizon Europe. And then second, the pre-evaluation scheme is for coordinators of the collaborative projects. Coordinators here have the possibility to choose 1 or 2 pre-evaluators to evaluate the draft Horizon Europe proposal prior to the EU deadline. Registration is possible here at any time, but it can be no later than 7 days prior to the Horizon Europe EU deadline. And this scheme reimburses the pre-evaluators 4,500 Danish kroners per evaluation. So this is definitely also good input to have for your proposal. For both of these, I have added the link on both slides to read more about the schemes. And then last for me is just a few important links. Whether you're already writing or you're interested in writing a proposal, it's good to have a look at the funding and tender portal for relevant topics and supporting documents. As I mentioned, we have a big website on Horizon Europe, and then the EU DK support network is a Danish network where it's possible for you to find a public EU advisor near you who's able to assist you. So that was sort of the introduction from me, and then I'll pass the floor to Peter to give his introduction to the excellence section of the proposal template. So Peter, if you would share your own slides.
Okay, thank you very much. I will give it a try. If you remove yours.
I am going to remove mine now. I hope you have the option now to share your, yes.
Just putting it on presentation mode. Does it show?
Yes, perfect.
Okay,
good.
So thank you very much for the invitation and for the possibility to speak to you. I will use a standard set of slides that is now also available on our funding tenders portal. It is the set of slides that we use for briefing the evaluator experts. So it is addressed to the evaluator experts, but I think this is exactly the part of the story that interests you, because you should, as the ones writing the proposal, put yourself in the shoes of the experts to be able to write something that the experts like, so to say. So the full set, as I said, is now available on the portal. When you go to the expert area, there you will find it on the right-hand side in the links section. So I am supposed to talk about the excellence criterion, and we speak here, of course, about pillar 2, if I understand it correctly. That means research and innovation actions and innovation actions. I will not speak about the ERC or Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, meaning that we are here today in the area of the program that is not bottom-up but top-down, meaning that it is not only how you do it what counts in the evaluation, but also what you do. And in terms of what you do, you should, when you start thinking about proposals, try to understand the overall, what we call intervention logic of this program, which is, of course, very much focused on impacts, on expected impacts. And these expected impacts are supposed to, of course, come and contribute to the EU policy priorities that are set at the political level, at the very highest level. And the whole Horizon Europe and also the work programs that will soon be published are following this intervention logic, meaning that it all starts from the high-level EU policy priorities, Green Deal, health, digital transformation, and so on. And from this, the so-called strategic plan was developed, which is a 3-year plan setting out the main orientations and impact areas for the Horizon Europe framework program. It also specifies the expected impacts, and all this is then translated in the work program into the so-called destinations, so where all the expected impacts are specified even more. This is something that you should have in the back of your mind when you start even thinking about a proposal, because also the excellence, and I will say a few more words on this, also the excellence will be assessed against this background in pillar 2, of course. So, and when you then come from the high-level policy priorities via the strategic plan towards the Horizon Europe work program, you will see that, of course, there are, as always, calls, and the calls consists of core topics. And for each topic, there is a very detailed description on what is expected in terms of the scope of the topic. So which kind of activities will this topic cover? What is the expected outcome of the projects that we fund under this topic? What can be the expected impact? Of course, we will also specify the type of action, so whether it's a research and innovation action or an innovation action or a coordination and support action. Very often there is also an indication on the so-called technology readiness level, so meaning in which status the research is, in which state towards application and markets and societal challenges. And then, of course, the budget will also be there as always. This slide shows again this link between the policy priorities and the project results. I will not go into the details, but look at this slide, try to digest it when you start thinking about the content of your proposals. I also will not dwell too long on this standard evaluation process. The ones of you who have participated will recognize it. It is exactly the same as in the past. So we will have a first step where individual experts read your proposals, give individual scores and individual comments. And then for each proposal, there will be a consensus group of at least 3, but very often more than 3 experts. And they will agree together on a common position, and they will also prepare a consensus report with then also consensus scores. A whole group of proposals that were submitted to one topic go then together to a panel review, and this panel will establish a ranked list of the proposals to be funded or to be rejected Of course, the last step is still with the Commission. So in principle, the Commission has the right also to deviate from this ranked list, but this is only in exceptional cases. And then there is also a special procedure with another consultation of the member states in the form of the program committee needed.
Excuse me, Peter, I'm sorry to interrupt
Yes.
you. There are some black bars covering the picture of some of the part of your presentation.
Ah,
Can you maybe you can remove the pictures of the
I will
participants?
try to.
Up at the top by
Doesn't
view
work.
options, I think you
No.
can remove them. Or the view bottom and the right side.
Yes, hide video panel. Is it better now?
Much better. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry. Okay, now I come to the excellence criteria in particular, and these slides represent more or less one-to-one what is also written as guidance in the proposal template. So if you have a look already at the guidance in the proposal template, you will recognize all this. So what will be assessed in the excellence criterion? Of course, first, the objectives of the proposal. So, and here again, very important, the objectives must, of course, fit the topic. They must be pertinent to the topic description in the call for proposals. They should also be clear, measurable, verifiable, realistically achievable, but not also too unambitious for sure. The work has to go, you have to demonstrate that what you suggest goes beyond the state of the art for sure. Meaning there could be groundbreaking new research, novel concepts, novel approaches, new products as an outcome of the project, new services or business or organization models. Another question that will be asked to the evaluators is also whether the R&I maturity of the work is in line with the topic description. Here, we're referring again to the technology readiness levels if they are specified in the description of the topic. And then next, apart from the objectives, of course, the scientific methodology will also be assessed. So is it clear and sound? Is it in compliance with the so-called do not significant harm approach? And I will come to it later on another slide. Is it clear how the expertise and the methods from different disciplines will be brought together? If in your proposal you think it doesn't have to be interdisciplinary, then you should justify this, because the default assumption is that in such projects that should lead to applicable results and have impact, normally interdisciplinarity is key. Another aspect that will also be now evaluated under the excellence criterion is the gender dimension in the research and innovation content. We talk here not about the workforce statistics or the composition of the team doing the work in terms of gender balance. We speak about the content of the research work, and I will say a few more words afterwards. Yet another aspect that is new in Horizon Europe is the open science practices that will also be assessed now under the excellence criterion. So how do you intend to implement open science practice in the methodology, in the scientific and research methodology of your project? This includes, of course, also the research data management. And last point here, social science and humanities. There are quite a number of call topics where this is explicitly required, that your project, your proposal also integrates social science and humanities aspects. And then, of course, these aspects must be properly described in your proposal. Yes, I start here on these special aspects with the open science. So what does it mean? It's an approach based on open cooperative work and systematic sharing of knowledge and tools as early and widely as possible in the process. And in Horizon Europe, some of these open science aspects will even be mandatory. In particular, we will request that all publications that result from your projects are published in open access journals with even specific licenses and so on. And there may also be additional obligations in some work program topics. And if they are there, you have to, of course, to take account of them. But the open science goes beyond this. It's also about open access to your research data that are created in the projects. So you must also in the proposal already explain how you take care about the data management, how you make the data available in a usable form, and so on and so forth. And the open access is not only restricted to the publications, but it should be understood as widely as possible. So access to data, to software, to models, algorithms, and workflows through deposition in trusted repositories. And of course, you should make sure that you participate in open peer review with your publications. Another aspect of open science is citizen science. So if this is pertinent in your project, how do you involve other actors like citizens, civil society, end users in the running of your project, or at least in the exploitation and implementation of the results? So far on open science, and I now turn to the gender dimension. So as I said, under the excellence criterion, the experts will assess the content of the research work. And this is mandatory in Horizon Europe in all topics, except if it is explicitly mentioned that it doesn't apply. But as far as I can see, there will be only very few topics where it will be explicitly excluded. So the default is this will be assessed. And why is the gender dimension important? There are a few examples here in the slide that you can read. So for instance, in health research, there are certainly differences between women and men in many different diseases. The example here is, of course, COVID-19 and the infection levels and mortality rates that are different between the sexes and genders. Same for cardiovascular diseases, but it is also in other parts. So you know the stories about the car safety, the crash tests that they normally in the past were done only on the male body standards. Artificial intelligence might have many aspects that have a relation to the gender equality and potential biases in the data sets that are used for training the AI, and so on and so forth. I will not go through the whole list, but you hopefully understand the concept and you can then look at it in more detail yourself. And social science and humanities. So for this, that is not by default. This is if it is mentioned in the topic, and then you should care for this in your proposal. So, and you will see that in many topics, actually, in particular, when we go to the projects that are closer to an application, closer to exploitation, social science and humanities will play a role. So, for instance, when we speak about public health, or when we speak about the impacts of climate change and climate change mitigation, changing behavior patterns, and so on and so forth, this will have a role to play. But as I said, if it's required, the requirements will be described in the topic descriptions. And then finally, the do not significant harm principle this is something new, I have to say, also for us. It follows the adoption of an EU regulation in summer last year about the so-called EU taxonomy of economic activities that contribute to sustainability. And one of the, so to say, easiest components of this EU taxonomy is the do no significant harm principle. And the question here is whether your research project, your work, your methodology could have any harmful effect on the 6 points that are on that slide: climate change mitigation, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, pollution prevention and control, climate change adaptation, transition to circular economy, protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. It does not mean that your project must be 100% clean. The important thing here is that you demonstrate that you have thought about this. And if there is an issue, that you explain why the project still makes sense. And it is, so to say, it will not be ticking a box saying, yes, my project has potential harm for this, and that point will not lead to a lower score. It is more for awareness raising and for making sure that you take these issues into account when designing your project. And I think I am at the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. And I stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Peter, for this very interesting and informative presentation. While you were speaking, there have been some questions in the chat, very interesting questions. The first one is a question: should the objectives not only match the topic, but especially as well address the expected impacts of the call?
Absolutely, yes, yes, for sure. But I mean, today I am speaking here about the excellence, and there will be the other seminars on impact and implementation. Therefore, I focused on the objectives.
Thank you. Another question: should the objectives address the whole problem as read out, outlined in the topic description? And could a proposal be successful addressing only a part of that?
The latter, yes. You don't have to be all embracing when doing this. I mean, I should maybe say it depends also a bit on the number of proposals to be funded. So, and very often there is an indication, I mean, there is in any case an indication of the budget for the topic. And then even if there is no indication on how many projects we want to fund, you can do the calculation yourself. And if there is indeed a topic where only 2-3 projects will have a chance being funded, there might be the expectation that you don't cover a just very narrow part of the objectives. Then you should maybe cover it.
I'm afraid we lost you now, Peter. You froze. Peter, you froze. Can you please repeat the last part of your answer?
Oh yes, I'm just getting a message. My internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's fine now.
Okay, no, I said there is no, of course, no rules or even implicit expectation that a proposal covers the whole broadness of a topic and all the objectives described. But then I also said that when making your own assessment, you could have a look at the budget available for the topic, and you know what the average size of a proposal is, and then you can calculate yourself how many projects would probably be funded under this topic. And if it's only 2 or 3, then possibly the expectation is that you cover a bit more of the objectives within one project, and not just a narrow part of the objectives of this topic.
Thank you. Now there's a question about international cooperation. Why is there Why is there so much emphasis on collaborating with international, mostly Asian partners? We can supply the roles we need with purely European partners, so find the role very hard to justify.
That's the question is not really in scope of today's seminar, but I also don't know to what the colleague actually refers when he says or she says that there is so much emphasis on collaboration with Asia. So it is very topic specific. It depends very much. Maybe there is the one or the other topic where we expect a collaboration, but there will also be other topics where we do not expect a collaboration, on the contrary. So this is really topic specific. I cannot go in more details here.
Oh, thank you. There are more questions to the objectives.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that objectives do have a more prominent function in the new template than in Horizon 2020. Section 1.1 and 1.2 refers often back to the objectives. How to cope with that?
I don't think, I mean, this impression might not be really correct. The objectives were also a very important part for the evaluation under Horizon 2020. I don't think there is so much change. But what counts, and what I tried to explain at the very beginning, that you are placing your project, your ideas in this overall logic of the intervention philosophy that the Commission has developed together with Parliament and member states, starting from the EU policy priorities and so on, as I showed at the very beginning.
One more about objectives.
Mm-hmm.
I think the objectives should match the expected impact written in the call text. So when objectives are evaluated as part of the excellence, then the call text impact statements should be covered? Question mark.
That should indeed be the case. Yes, and yes, we hope that in our topics descriptions we were consistent.
Under Horizon 2020, the specific challenge would help with the objectives. So Horizon Europe, there appears to be no specific challenge heading. What should be used to help tease out the objectives?
So I assume you refer to something that we now call destination. So this is, so to say, an overarching objective for a whole group of topics or even a group of calls. And I'm not sure whether I understood correctly the question.
I think I understand in the same way.
Okay.
Otherwise, the person asking must try to reformulate the question. There's a question to the gender dimension. Mm-hmm. Is the gender dimension solely focused on the project rather than the consortium? In some topics, like in energy, hydrogen, CCUs projects, it can be hard to integrate it in gender dimension.
It can be hard, and maybe in some areas it's not absolutely pertinent. So, as I said, there might be topics where it is excluded. So where the topic text explicitly said, in this topic, we don't take account of it. But in all other topics, if you prepare a proposal, you should at least mention it. And if you think that it's not pertinent in your particular project, you should justify it. But rather think broadly, think very broadly of any potential aspect that might have a gender dimension in the research content. And there is also more guidance on this. So there is a whole website with studies on different aspects of gender in research. I can send the link to this afterwards.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to ask the participants to pose no further questions because we're running short of time. So we'll answer those that are in the chat now, but no further questions, please. There's a question more about international cooperation. I'm asking if Taiwan research institutions can be partners in Horizon Europe as they were in Horizon 2020.
So the general principle of openness is kept also in Horizon Europe, meaning in principle, anyone in the world can participate. Not anyone in the world can get funded, but participate, anyone in the world can. When it comes to funding, it's of course in the first instance member states, but then also the future associated states. There are no associated states yet to Horizon Europe, but there is a whole list of countries that want to be associated, in particular the ones that were associated to Horizon 2020. But this process will take a while. It might be quicker for some countries, in particular for the European Economic Area countries, meaning Norway and Iceland. It will also hopefully go very quickly for the UK, because it's part of the UK overall agreement after Brexit. It can take longer, in particular for the so-called category D countries, including, for instance, Switzerland. But all this is underway, and we still hope that before the first big bulk of Horizon Europe grant agreements can be signed, this is all in place. And then, of course, we have the low and middle income countries, which can also participate and can get funded. And you will find the concrete list of these countries, of course, in the annex of the work program.
There's a question to the proposal template directly. Yeah. The template has indicated how many pages each section and subsection should take. Will the evaluators be instructed to take them into account? And are we free to do a 15-page or 25-page excellence section according to our need?
So the rule is that there is this overall limit, if I remember well, 45 pages now. And the evaluators will be asked to ignore everything that goes beyond the page limit. Of course, this page, yeah.
Sorry, but each section, is there a limit to each section, or is it only the total number of pages that?
There is an indication for each section, but what we take into account is the overall length of the proposals.
Thank you. The specific challenge from OL can often be found in the first paragraph under scope in Horizon Europe topics.
Okay.
Here you will see something very similar to the specific challenge part in Horizon 2020 topics. I think that's more maybe a comment than a question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also the last one now, also more comment. A lot of calls are actually addressing policy advice. However, they are often not clear which bodies the advice is supposed to be given to. Only the Commission or Commission and municipalities, national bodies.
Yes, I'm afraid I cannot answer this question or this comment.
But I can say we will take notice of these comments also in regards to the last discussions of the draft work programs. Thank you very much, Peter, for your very interesting words. I will give now the floor to FT to share your inspirational ideas and thoughts about how to address the proposal.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can see the screen. If not, let me know. I will say very few things about why you should listen to me. I've worked since the beginning of FP7 and now all through Horizon 2020. At the moment, I'm involved in about 15 ongoing projects. I have casually worked as an evaluator for the Commission in several different occasions and calls. And as I assume anyone who has been competing in this game, I have more failures than wins. And pretty much every project that we won was due to good collaboration and very strong friends and other researchers that have helped win. A few things again about how I work. I don't like tedious work. I usually go for topics that are challenging and new, and they're not the usual cup of tea. I try to blend as much as I can from my knowledge with other colleagues from different disciplines. And this is the way I like Horizon and framework programs in general. Now, Peter has already kindly explained all this. He was very detailed in some of the evaluation criteria, and that puts me out of the difficulty of explaining what I think is the most important slide of today. As an evaluator, of course, you have to write something under both these bullets. They used to be 4, now in excellence, now there are 2. I also think that Peter's comment is correct. I don't see that the objectives are somewhat elevated. They're more or less where they were. What has changed now is that the ambition has been merged with the objectives, and we have some new words for the first time as an evaluation criteria or sub-criteria within the second bullet, which is, let's say, under one umbrella called methodology. This is the most important change, is the most important slide. This is what everybody needs to filter. This is what we need to decipher, and this is what we need to address. I will go into some personal, let's say, first impressions about these changes, about the template. Now, one of my least favorite chapters is finally gone. I'm not sad to see it go. I see now that the ambition has been somewhat elevated to the beginning of the proposal. I think that's a good, let's say, change. And it's very close now with the objectives, which makes it easy for the evaluator to understand whether these two things actually work together nice. I'm glad to see the gender and the open science being part of the evaluation criteria. And as a social researcher myself, an assistant professor at the CBS of behavioral economics, I like it that now SSH, wherever applicable, is its subchapter. And of course, I cannot go on without addressing the elephant in the room. Yes, size has shrunk by a lot. And I think that that can be a very positive thing, especially given the fact that nobody wants to write extra pages and extra texts, especially when they're not full of juicy details or full of good research and good thoughts. So I salute that part as well. Now, if I have to think what is less good about the new structure, what I personally find a little bit puzzling is that now methodology bundles a lot of new aspects, some of which could be found in the old impact section 2.2, data management, for example. Some new indicative page counts so that other sections are now bigger, or at least the commission would like to read a little bit more about it. What I particularly find puzzling is that concept seems to be just one part of that bundle. Maybe it's just wording. We will have to wait and see whether it has been somewhat downgraded. I don't believe so. I don't think so, and I don't want to believe so. What worries me a little bit is that maybe not in the first 1 or 2 waves, but very soon afterwards, some of these sections might become what we say commodity text. Everybody will just find the way to get the points ticked, and we will all pretty much be sharing the same or similar texts to address some of these new sub-criteria. I believe that you can remember that the size was a positive thing, but size can also be the new size can be definitely a bad thing. I know that every proposer I've been talking to is worried that how can we fit so much into so little. I understand that, and I think that some of these indications might prove while we're working that they are not really workable. I still need to see that, and I still expect that to be very challenging. Most of the points I've covered can be considered by different standards as both positive and negative. I understand that. My suggestion to all my younger associates is, well, it's not a problem because everybody has the same let's say, questions. So it's not that it's different for you. Everybody has the same face the exact same challenge. So don't worry too much. Now, I was asked to say a few words about how would I approach, and this is exactly coming from previous experience and the few talks that we had with some of my colleagues and some of the other people in my ecosystem. And I will only present a few, only two slides about what I would suggest to do and what I would suggest to avoid. Again, feel free to disagree. There are no absolutes here. What I like to do always is start with the section that is not even in the, let's say, template. I don't remember if it is anymore. The problem statement. What we typically do is we find the key literature, we go beyond some broad mono scientific disciplinary area where we just read about our own stuff. We read the green, white, the whatever other papers, policy papers we can find, and then we start talking not with our colleagues, but the colleagues on the other side of the disciplines. When we're writing excellence, what I hate either as a proposal writer or as an evaluator or as a reviewer is bloated, boring, pompous texts. Please keep in mind, for those of you who are not evaluators yourselves, evaluators are also humans. They get very easily tired. It's human. It's not that you can do anything about it. So something that is fresh, something that is interesting, immediately gets out of the pile of the commodity proposals. What I emphasize very, very often is that every subchapter can score you points, but it can also cost you points. So please take the time. Try to innovate wherever you can, even in the most boring subchapters. There's always room for innovation. This is my last point. If I had to say with one little sentence what one should do in excellence, please only invest as much time as you can afford on the idea. Don't start spending your energy elsewhere. Get something, put together an idea that is compelling, put an idea that wins the heart and the mind, put something that is different. And if you cannot come with one central positioning, one sweeping, revolutionary, great idea or smart, let's say, starting point, just add a few smaller good ideas together. What you should not do, according to me at least, what I avoid doing. You asked a lot of questions about the objectives. What really makes me start with the left foot when I'm evaluating is when I read a dry list of objectives, and that's the first thing I read. I don't see any problem statement. I just see a wish list type of objectives. That doesn't really work. I need to understand whether that objective makes sense. I need to understand if that is original, if it is connected, of course, to the topic. Many use the trick of copy pasting a few of the keywords from the commission text, and they think that they can get away with it. It can happen, but not very often. What I also see is a lot of political lingo. I see a lot of recycling. Sometimes people even forget to change the name of the project they used to be the acronym. That is really not very professional. What I would also not, and I'm sure that I'm going to have a lot of people disagreeing here. My tip is never, ever start with writing the work plan. That's just not very smart. If you don't have the concept ready, I mean, why are you writing a work plan for something that you don't know what it's supposed to be doing? Not a good idea. The similar vein, before people start understanding the concept and writing the excellence, they get in a frenzy to invite partners. I know it's an urge, and I have had that urge myself. Please resist it. Outside the core, don't over invite unless your concept is ready. Otherwise, you might be getting filled with redundant partners who do not serve the concept. What we also try to avoid doing is copy pasting these called commodity sections. It's very tempting because you save some time. It's very dull. and it's not scoring you any points from an evaluation perspective. Try to avoid that. The novel subchapters, this can be a room for distinguishing, for getting an advantage, for getting the attention of the evaluator and scoring some points as well. Don't treat them as processual. Don't just get them out of the way. One point that is particularly close at heart, SSH, for many of my engineering friends or medical scientists or otherwise, they think that SSH is okay. We need to tackle this. Let's find this SSH guy and get it over with. It's a wasted opportunity. Yes, you can do that and tick a few boxes. Take it seriously, score higher points. One of the things that is implied now in the new template is that you should not confuse the work plan with the methodology. That's a mistake that many people do. In the old 1.3 section, you will read a lot people writing about the work packages and the work and the tasks and what they will be doing. No, please don't do that. Now the Commission is nudging that specifically. Keep anything that is methodology, anything that is implementation related in implementation. Write a narrative while you're writing your methodology. Most important bullet of this slide, please don't forget the topic. What happens many of the times is people read it in the beginning, then they start these conversations, they start writing, and then they completely forget about what the original topic was saying. And yes, it's easy. Sometimes it's so generic, it's so massively scoped, it's impossible to remember and address all the points. But everything that is put in there can be your ally and can be your enemy if you completely ignore it. Someone of the evaluators might pick it up, make a nasty comment, there goes half your point, you have to resubmit next year. The most important thing, of course, one of the most common mistakes anybody is doing in the excellence section is they come up with an idea because they like it, they think it's cool, and it might be, and then it doesn't really address the impact section, because there's not always a very straightforward connection between scope and expected impact. People tend to look at the impact section way too late. And then they ask someone to write, please write the impact section, but it's impossible because the excellence, the concept was not written to address that impact. Then you just bloat and you have to write some filler texts, hoping to trick the evaluators. It's going to be much harder now in Horizon Europe to do that. I don't know how I'm going on time, but this is my final slide. I thought if I was sitting on the other side of this debate, which I have very often, what would what kind of questions would I have? Is there an important aspect of the excellence chapter, the point I just raised, the impact section? If the excellence does not fully connect to the impact section, you can just, start praying or something. It's not going to work out. Many people make the mistake that the first pages is what is 90% of the grade of excellence. I've heard all that. I used to believe that myself. No, it's not. You might start with the right foot, impress, make the evaluator feel that this is a wonderful proposal, and then you do something stupid in some sub-chapter. You didn't really pay too much attention. You lose half a point. Again, you are in the reject list. Can I adjust the template? I think it was already covered. I will be very careful. The Commission always uses very carefully its lingo. If it says indicative, they have something in mind. They don't want to restrict you, but probably they have thought of what they would like to see. Always consult with NCPs. That's what I do. If I'm going to change something in the template, I consult with my NCP. I need a written answer for anything that has to do with eligibility or similar topics. Many people like graphs, and they think now with a smaller number of pages, you will probably be better with graphs. I'm not fully sold on that idea. Let's see how that goes. Sometimes a graph is very understandable to you, but to someone who doesn't really understand your idea, it doesn't really help much unless there is good supportive text. So you lose some space. Is there some way that one should go about this? No. I would experiment, and this is what I've been doing the last 4 or 5 years. I like to change the way I work. I like new ideas, and this is an excellent case now that Horizon Europe is starting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. After before, well, yes, there was one asking you to show the slide with the don'ts again. But anyway, I think you're unmuted now.
Yeah. So you want to see the which slide?
The don'ts.
The don'ts. Yes, of course. There you are.
And while showing that, there was one question. It's one of your first slides, the one with the things you were happy about, I think, was about the relation to the work program.
Yes.
There's
This is
yes, the own relation to the work program. There's a question to that one. Maybe you can show the don'ts while I read the question to you. I don't know if you can multitask. The question is, you said that the relation to work program is gone, but the new framework and objectives heading states briefly describe the objectives of your proposed work. Why are they pertinent to the work program topic? And then the person is asking, am I misreading this? I thought this was referring to the relation to scope.
well, that's the relation to the scope of the objective, which of course always has been a part of the objectives. You had to ground it to the scope, otherwise it will be again a wish list type of objective. What I was referring here to, and again, I might be wrong because sometimes I don't know if I'm reading the correct draft of the template, but I think the old 1.2, which was just an orphan section that was not evaluated, which was called relation to the work program, I was part of excellence, and you just had to write, okay, generally speaking, how does this project fit into the to the topic? And I think that section is abandoned. If again I'm not mistaken, I hope Peter is still here. Maybe he can comment as well. I don't know if this answers fully.
Well, and then if you please show the don'ts slide.
Yes, of course.
At the end.
I hope you can see it. Yes.
There it is. I don't know if there are any further questions. There's nothing on the chat.
No.
That one person is writing, thank you for good inspiring talk on what to do and don't. And I would say yes, I think you can on share now. If there are no questions, no further questions to FT, I would just say thank you so much. It was really inspiring to you, FT, and also to Peter. Well, yes, I hope everyone has got some good inspiration for starting up a successful proposal. And please remember the next section, the impact section that's being presented tomorrow, and the implementation section on the 27th, as Annie started to say. So that's all we have for you today. Thank you very much for listening, and well, hope to see you and see some good proposals from you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, Peter.